Welcome everybody to What the Flick, Mad Men, episode 12. Only one more episode. The Quality of Mercy. Alonso Duralde, Cenk Uygur. Alonso will explain. Ben Mankiewicz.
Well, you know, the quality of mercy, of course, is a quote from The Merchant of Venice, that the quality of mercy is not strained.
Of course.
That the idea being that the more powerful you are, the more capacity you should have for compassion and mercy. Of course, this being Mad Men, that doesn't happen.
Right.
The more powerful you are, the more of an asshole you tend to behave like, and the more you selfishly, manipulate situations for your own benefit.
So there were opportunities for people to show mercy.
Right.
And I don't know, did they? I'm curious. I wanted to start, let's start with one of them. Don had an opportunity, certainly, and Pete has an opportunity. So let's begin, as we usually, at the end of these things, we go, well, before we go, Bob Benson.
Bob Benson is now
right. Let's start with Bob Benson.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So building off of last week, now we find out that Bob Benson is basically Don Draper 2.0. That everything that he told the people at Sterling Cooper Partners is a lie. He is not who he says he is. He does not have the background, the job experience, the educational experience that he says he did. Just like Don, he has fabricated an entire identity for himself. And what's interesting about it is that when Pete busts him, because Duck has done all the due diligence and found out the deal on this, rather than expose him, Pete basically says, look, I don't know how you people operate, I don't know how you got this far, but I'm not going to get in your way, just don't fuck me over.
That was a big turn, though. You didn't think Pete was going to do that. Like, in that conversation, you thought, no, I'm not going to give you 1 day's lead. I'm going to expose you now, and you're going to get run out of this firm.
Right. No. I think he was being exceedingly pragmatic. Like, he sees how much Chevy likes Bob, and he certainly doesn't want to make waves with Chevy now that he's taking over from Ken Cosgrove. And so I think he's being just super pragmatic and dialing it down and being like, all right, you're good at this. They like you. I know the scoop. You know that I know the scoop. So do your thing, but don't do it to me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go one extra layer here. I think he's going beyond that, going to the quality of mercy theme. I think he's saying, I'm going to use you later.
Right.
And you know that I have power over you, and you'll do exactly as you're told, and this is a powerful weapon I have now within the firm.
So file that away.
I was thinking because he saw what happened when he took on Don, and it didn't work, but he sort of tried the same thing with Don, except that Don just called his bluff. Because Don had power at that point. If I'm remembering it correctly, Don was like, what are you going to do? Like, Don didn't freak out when he went to Bert Cooper.
Yeah, I hear you guys on that, but look, this kid has no power, okay? Right. Yeah, Harry Hamlin likes him. I think that's a thing, etc. But it's a tiny amount of power.
Chevy likes him.
No, I know, but you expose him and he's done for. Nobody's going to have his back. Hamlin, everybody's going to say.
But that's what I want to get to. I think somebody would have his back. I do, and I think it would be Don, who might well have his back in that situation.
I don't think he's showing any mercy here, Pete. I don't think he's calculating that he couldn't win that fight.
I think
he's just thinking, I'm going to have this guy in my back pocket, and he's going to help me at a time that I need him. He's just being pure Machiavelli.
I agree with that, but I think right now Pete's bottom line is, I want Chevy. Nobody else wants me to have Chevy. I have to take Bob Benson to have Chevy, but I'm going to let Bob Benson know who's boss by letting him know that I have this dirt on him that I'm not going to unleash now, but I can at a future date if I so choose.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I think that's very clear. I think you guys are essentially saying variations of the exact same thing. I would have been totally interested, and we may well get, I would hope, at one point, what Don does with the Bob Benson information.
Sure.
Which would be interesting.
This goes exactly to what Alonso was saying earlier. Look, J. Edgar Hoover had power over people not because he exposed them, but because he didn't expose them. Right?
He could.
Right. And that's how you wield power. You don't use it that often. It's the quality of mercy, right? But when you do, you know that it could be nuclear. So you accrue power by having information on other people or having things on other people. So, all of a sudden, Mad Men is slightly Game of Thrones.
I was going to say, this is exactly the point where Jake tries to mold Mad Men into Game of Thrones.
All of a sudden, Pete Campbell's Varys.
And like Game of Thrones, we got a great fight scene between Glenn and Rollo. It was my God, it was to me, that scene was such a, Game of Thrones is over. Like this is what constitutes a fight to the death. Yeah.
Okay. Am I the only perv? Probably, because they're way too young, and I immediately try to dismiss it out of my mind. Like, no. Make these college girls. What are you guys doing here? But when the girls said to Sally, you're gonna have to do something for us. I was like, whoa, did this get like weird?
No, I did not think that.
Dear Penthouse Forum. No, it was not going to go there.
I think I've watched too many of those sorority movies.
It was a lot of kids in this episode. It was a lot. I mean, it was a big. Those were a bunch of scenes with Sally and Betty, and then that long piece with Sally at the school. Did we like that?
Well, I think it's interesting that the reason that Sally wants to go to boarding school is because of last week's shocking revelations, and I think she's going to find that everybody else at boarding school is similarly damaged, and so that's what they all have in common. And so I think there's going to be a lack of compassion and mercy, from people, but maybe some empathy in unexpected moments too.
A friend of mine this week told me, a guy I respect a lot, okay, fine, my therapist, he said, like in the middle I was telling him something about, whatever, my mom or something, that's all I ever fucking talk about. And
Game of Thrones came up.
Right. No, and he was like, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, has Bad Man jumped the shark? And he was like, he's a religious viewer, but he thought, like, it's now become, he's like, I hate everyone. Like,
that's exactly my point. I started making it last week. I was going to double down on it this week. I mean, look, okay, let me combine those a little bit. First of all, Glenn is an annoying character. He's super weird.
He's always been creepy.
Yeah, and I can't take him anymore. I can't stand Sally. I
swear, I like Sally.
I like Sally a lot, actually.
No, I can't. And Don's secrets are not safe with Sally. And Don feels like he dodged a bullet. That bullet's coming back around. It's okay. It's the magic bullet from the JFK thing. It's going to ricochet left and come back right when he least expects it. You can't trust Sally. Sally will give you away to her friends in boarding school or something, and it'll get out. That's how it's going to go. And now we get to the point where I hate everybody. I don't like Sally. I don't like Harry Crane. I don't like Pete. I don't like Don anymore. Am I too shallow for wanting a protagonist?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's funny. I was on.
I was like, yeah, you are.
I think for this show, I think from the way it was established from the get-go, these people were always going to be self-serving and heartless to a certain extent. So we're getting more of that. We're getting to know them better and finding out that their souls are blacker than we originally expected. But I don't feel like this show started out like the Doris Day show and then suddenly took a turn. I mean, these guys have always been conniving and they've always been.
I know, but it did take a turn because Don was a conflicted guy, and we always felt conflicted about him, and we empathize with that because we're conflicted, right? We do good things, we do bad things, and he cheats on his wife, and you're like, oh, don't do it, but I get it, I understand it, and you're still rooting for him.
People were willing to forgive him for cheating on Betty more than they're willing to forgive him for cheating on Megan.
Yeah, I'm even beyond the cheating. The two parts that really bothered me were when he went mental over Dr. Rosen's wife, okay? And he tried to draw her back in with the kid in Vietnam, and then going back for sex again when he shouldn't have, and then what he did this episode with Peggy and Ted, and it was so cruel.
It's interesting though because I didn't know whether it was cruel, and Lee didn't think it was cruel at all. Thought good for Don, and she has many of your same. The beliefs we all have about Don. She's incredibly conflicted about Don. Like, I don't even know if I can like this guy anymore. But she didn't think that was bad.
I don't think he was doing it to screw over Ted and Peggy necessarily. I think his main goal was this guy needs an explanation that is better than what Ted's giving him. I have to personalize it, but rather than give away the fact that these two have a budding affair going on, I'm going to couch it in dead guy, which is something that he'll be like, oh, and that'll work for him.
So you guys are right about that, but that was peripheral. Don's main point in that was making it public to everyone else at the firm that Ted and Peggy were,
but they know.
Everybody knew.
To humiliate them, to see Ted, and that's why he paused and paused and paused. Why not get straight to it? Why not go? And it's the reason is he wanted to torture Ted there, saying, "Ha ha, I've got power over you."
He was dangling on the hook a little.
He was dangling on the hook, but Ted seemed responsive to Don's explanation. Ted seemed literally grateful.
Yeah,
he was a little grateful, a little pissed, and look, Don let him off the hook ultimately. And Don is ultimately right that Ted and Peggy are too obsessed with each other, and it's too obvious. But at the same time, he didn't have to torture Ted and Peggy like that, and that's where I think he jumps the shark and becomes cruel. And I can live with flawed, I'm not sure I could live with cruel.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad, but he definitely tortured him with it a little bit. There's no question. Although some of that is drawn out. I don't know. Some of that's drawn out for our purposes.
Sure.
Also, or to literally make us go.
What's he gonna say?
What's he going to say? What's he going to say? And in a sense, then I didn't like that scene as much because I don't think Don left. If Don's goal was to get the thing raised and to twist the knife in Ted a little bit, that's a huge risk because Ted might say at that point, "What do you want me to say? I love Peggy, and I want to leave my wife." Like you don't know. So
why is he even messing with Ted? What's wrong with him?
that's why
Ted is obviously not as powerful as him, not as good as him. So just calm down.
There's an ongoing thing. Ever since Ted showed up in the office, the two of them have been
Also, Don
jockeying for position.
Don's confidence about who he is and that he do things the right way is fleeting. You know, he's not the Don Draper of 1959 in any way. So I think he's definitely threatened by Ted. The fact that everybody likes Ted, the fact that Ted likes his job.
Right.
You know, Ted's excited to do this, and Don has.
Don is the 60s, and Bob Benson is the 70s.
Right.
I'm telling you.
And Ted is capable of being the 70s. I mean,
Certainly,
Ted, with
yeah.
just even, just like Don, would Don ever come in and pick one kid up and put him on his shoulders and carry the other one a day to let his wife sleep? He's going to go toss the football around for crying out loud. Don's never done. But I thought that scene from a TV point of view was flawed. That seemed contrived to me. That scene with St. Joseph's aspirin guys.
Now, can we talk about Rosemary's Baby? Because that has become like a real recurring motif for this season.
Yeah, totally.
Because you had Sally was reading it on the episode with the break-in, which is a whole sort of creepy New York apartment thing unto itself. Then you have the episode where Megan is wearing the white shirt with the red star on it that Sharon Tate was photographed wearing on the set of Rosemary's Baby, which her husband Roman Polanski directed. And now this week,
I didn't know that photograph was from the set of Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so now you've got, they go see the movie. They're talking about the movie.
Did you know what movie they were seeing instantly?
I did, but I wasn't until Dave wasn't sure until they said Mia Farrow. But I was like, when the lights come up and they're looking to serve, it was like, oh shit, they're at Rosemary's Baby.
No, that's what I said. No, as soon as the lights came up, I said to Lee, I was like, Rosemary's Baby. It was great. I seemed like a freaking hero. Yeah.
That's where you guys are the professionals. Yeah. Okay, I'm not being a What the Flick movie reviewer.
So but with this many references, they are either building to something really horrible happening to somebody in the final episode, possibly the murder of Megan or something. Or the other option, if they don't like take it somewhere, is that I think they're sort of underscoring the feeling of dread that people had in 1968, that horrible things were going to happen.
That's it.
And the world was not a safe place.
And I hope that that's it, because now with the so aggressively acknowledged by the costume designer that they don't do anything by accident. She's wearing the Sharon Tate T-shirt. Megan is like now. I mean, I get it that not everyone is as deep in the weeds as we are, and many are, but many are. So almost now, if Megan's killed, now I'm going to feel like,
with that many clues, it feels like a cheat. Yeah.
Well, the Nixon ad in this again re-emphasized that theme of like it's dangerous out there.
Yeah, but all year the sirens, the Peggy with the stabbing and that apartment. I mean, it's and the Chicago convention and watching that, plus the two murders.
Okay, can I just admit for the 8th time that if we hadn't been doing this together, there's no way I would know that Megan was in any way, shape, or form in danger, and it would have. And if something really does happen to her in the last episode, I would have been as shocked as Red Wedding.
All right. Well, but that's a totally relevant thing to say But they have to know that people read about this that they can't put her in that.
Remember, that's a small percentage of the audience. I bet 85% of the people who watch Mad Men do not read that stuff.
I got you. Except that number is growing constantly, and this is a show that still has never done that well, but it's done incredibly well against the exact people with the people they want to get it to.
Right, the people that watch it watch the shit out of it.
Right. And then they meet on Mondays and talk about it on the air. Like three assholes. It's to go back to Game of Thrones. Talk about a different way of wrapping up the season, assuming that we get something big next week, which for the first time the coming attractions suggested that something at least might happen.
Yeah, because they were all bad. They were all old attractions.
They were all old attractions telling you these are the things that were relevant, but maybe not. That the finale is the big episode, because this was certainly not the big episode in any way.
The Glenn Rollo fight was not was not the big finish.
And the Glenn Rollo fight was not it. I don't know. what I liked best about this episode was that literally the last shot. Again, very similar to the shot the week before, which was Don drunk going to the room with Sally saying, I guess I understand. And this week, Don curled up on his couch. Right, sort of having been arguably the two most important women in his life, his daughter and his protege, have left him, abandoned him, and they hate him, which I thought
they
was...
both say the same line? You're a monster.
Did Sally say you're a monster?
I thought for sure you were going to come in and tell me that.
You might be right. I'd have to go back and look again.
But you might be right, but either way, the tone is identical. I want nothing to do with you. I hate you. I can't be here. And these are two girls, from his way of looking at it, who idolized him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
whom he was molding to one
right.
understand.
And so that's a moment where, at least when you got him in the fetal position, you get that at least a moment of empathy with him. You're like, well, he feels, this mattered to him.
Well, maybe he shouldn't be such a dick, and maybe he shouldn't drink himself to oblivion. I keep wanting to say, hey, dickwad, you got everything, okay? You've got the hottest wife in the world, you got the big apartment in New York, you've got this great partnership, etc., and you've got people's respect and admiration. Enjoy that instead of ruining that.
Yeah, I guess but you said something last week that you wanted Don to do more to assuage Sally, and Alonso was like, "Hey, that's not what happened then. That didn't.
A 14-year-old in 1968.
That didn't happen." And I think that's a big part of it. That is a little that we have to keep reminding ourselves how to watch it. Of course, we want him to do that, and that's what a character starting in 1988 does, and gets better at it through the 90s, and now they're too good at it. Right. But that didn't happen then, and it's so frustrating. You're like these men of the 1960s who came of age in the 50s. They're freaking paralyzed by their total inability to talk about their feelings or anybody else's feelings with any degree of maturity.
Gives a cigarette to her, teenage daughter, for God's sake.
Isn't it amazing how much the time we live in shapes who we are?
Yeah.
And that's what's, of course, the best part about Mad Men, is that it lets you know that. And you're like, would I have been like Don if I, was his age in the 1960s,
and nothing
et
was
cetera?
stopping you from,
Right. And the answer to that is somewhat, right? Everybody's an individual, and yet, et cetera. But at the same time, the time we live in, the context we live in, is so powerful in how it affects us.
But again, not everybody on Mad Men even is Don Draper.
Right.
So,
Ted gets it to some extent. He knew.
Ken Cosgrove is not Don Draper.
Yeah, Ken Cosgrove. There we see the moment right there of a guy being like, "I'm having a baby. I'm so psyched. I don't want to be in frickin' Detroit when I have a baby."
Do we think the Moshe Dayan poster was a foreshadowing of Don and Ken getting shot in the eye?
Man, there was the wonderful thing about Mad Men is that they're so undramatic when they don't, most of the time. And so we see this scream from Ken, "No, wait," and he gets shot. We don't know if his head's blown off.
Yeah, and he doesn't come back for 2 or 3 scenes.
Right.
What happened to Ken?
Right, there's 13 minutes where I'm like, and so Don gets that phone call,
right?
From Harry, and you think it's somebody calling him to say, Ken Cosgrove's been killed in Detroit in a hunting accident. And then it turns out, no, he's fine.
Yeah. No, there's no way Ken was going to be dead, and there's no.
I thought he was dead. I totally thought he was dead.
No way. And there's no way that Don was going to say something about Peggy and Ted. I knew he was going to say something else, but,
right.
But it's a nice piece of drama. But it's not George R.R. Martin. Okay, ultimately, people are going to do relatively what you think they're going to do.
Yeah, which is, and again, but the one thing the great thing about Game of Thrones is that's the only show that does it. If all shows did that all the time, it would be incredibly irritating.
Yeah. Right? If this was Game of Thrones, I'd be like, then the chance of Ken Cosgrove being dead would be 80%.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this
and then his father would seek retribution on every executive at Chevy. Yeah.
I think this is one of those rare shows where almost any character could die at any moment. Maybe not to the Game of Thrones extent, but I think to a certain level, I think they're willing to go there and to defy expectation that way.
What about this?
They might prove you right next episode.
You mentioned this. What about the possibility that Bob Benson next week kills himself, jumps out the window, and that's him?
He's the opening credits guy?
He's the opening credits guy falling.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that either. Jeez, I learned so much here.
Okay. Like I said, anything can happen on this show, so I just, I'm going to wait and see.
So is Bob gay or is he not gay?
I don't even know if gay figures into it. I think he is clearly super ambitious. He may well be gay, and that's just part of the stuff that he's hiding, in addition to whatever his impoverished background is.
It's like the 23rd most relevant thing about him.
Yeah,
right?
it's low on the list of stuff that he's, that closet is packed with a lot of other things too.
Well, it turns out that's a good analogy. Yes.
Right. So the pass at Pete was a part of part of the ambition, part of getting ahead, part of this desire to serve, that he thought it would help Pete, that he did admire Pete. Do we believe that there was a time that he actually admired Pete, or only to serve Bob Benson?
It's hard to say. I mean, he's blossoming into quite the sociopath. So it's really anybody's guess at this point.
Bob or Pete?
Well, Bob mainly,
Right.
but Pete's always been a mess, and not getting any better.
You just knew Pete, like after that satisfying meeting with Bob Benson. It's great. I loved how this episode sets up what a douche Pete is by how he talks to the secretary. So he's nice to her when things are going well. Then he gets the blow, and he snaps at her. And then after he takes on Bob Benson and wins, he's like, gives her a pleasant nod, and she feels satisfied because her boss approves of her for that moment.
Yeah, my last point on that is that I can't stand people who are insecure or weak and then bash people underneath them because of their insecurity. Right. That's my pet peeve, like number one bad thing to do, right?
Right.
And Pete does that in spades. And unfortunately, Don's getting to the point where he does that. He went from helping people underneath him like Peggy in a greatly magnanimous way that made up for so many of his flaws to needlessly, cutting Peggy and Ted and everybody else underneath him. That seems cruel.
What happened to Dawn, by the way?
Yeah, I don't know. I read something last night too. I'm sure she's still there. She may have had some other role. I don't know.
I mean, are the secretaries floating now? Because somebody else was telling Peggy he's not. He went home.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Remember when she comes to the office and opens the door anyway and finds him there?
Yeah.
That was not Dawn. I'm like, where's Dawn?
I always figured that's something like scheduling, and they let Dawn go shoot something,
maybe she was in the supply closet taking care of that.
Right.
That's her responsibility.
You guys now have me thinking there's a 10% chance that the season finale is totally Red Wedding.
Right.
Dawn, Bob Benson, Megan, all killed.
Maybe Dawn shows up because she's been frozen out of the office. She pushes Bob Benson out the way.
There we go.
Everybody's falling out the windows because there's crossbows on the roof.
All right. Well, I mean, we've set up. I'm anxious for obviously this is a significant season finale, and then we just have one more season.
So whatever happens, we'll be talking about it next week.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.